Hey, what's up guys? Red Bishop here and welcome back to my channel. Today, Black Ops 2. That's what we're going to be discussing today. With Black Ops 2 just around the corner and launching in the mere weeks, I figured, hey, let's get a video up about what I'm most excited about for Black Ops 2. The gameplay you'll see in the background will be a Nuketown gameplay. I figured that's appropriate since Nuketown is coming back in the year 2025. I do end up getting about 92 kills here. I'm only running spy plane, counter spy plane, and napalm, but I do get about 27 deaths. So yeah, deaths might be a little too many That doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but it might be too many for some people. But I'm fine with the score that I got. It's action packed enough that I think it will suffice. But back to what I'm excited about for Black Ops 2. First off, the Pick 10 system. The Pick 10 system, which will change the way Create a Class works, is like this. So you will, if you don't want a secondary weapon, you don't even have to have a primary weapon. If you just want to run around, with a knife and one perk, you are free to do that. If you want to run around with 2 perk 1s and 1 perk 3 but no perk 2, you're free to do that as long as you have 10 points to be allocated to anything that you want. So I think it changes the Call of Duty game, not just the Create a Class game, because you'll see people run around, and I'm one of them, where I don't like using secondaries. So I'll try to, I don't do it in this game in particular because Nuketown is so action-packed, you don't really need it. But I will try to run around, shoot somebody, and then pick up their weapon, switch to my secondary and pick up their weapon, because I'm not a huge fan of secondaries. And like I said, with the Pick 10 system, with the new wild card system and all that, you can get 2 perks. You can have 1 perk. You can have 3 perks. You can have 2 primary weapons. So I mean that there are a vast array of choices for you to choose from. And so I'm really excited to get in there, mess around with it, and see what works well for me. And I'm sure most of you are as well. Next up, Kill Confirmed is back. Modern Warfare 3 to me, I got my $60 worth, but I never really got hooked on it like I did with Black Ops or like I did with Call of Duty 4 or any of that. It didn't, I couldn't get in the momentum with it. And so, but one thing I did really enjoy of Modern Warfare 3 was the Kill Confirmed game type. I thought that added a little twist to the team deathmatch formula that we're all used to. In team deathmatch, you'll sometimes have people just sitting in corners trying to kill stuff, or they'll run around with Ghost or Assassin or whatever. With Kill Confirmed, to win the game, you had to kill people, but you also had to go capture their tag. So it added a little twist to it. And that's one of my, not just my favorite game modes in Modern Warfare 3, it's one of my favorite game modes in any Call of Duty game. I think it's Kill Confirmed from Modern Warfare 3, and then War from World at War, which I really think Treyarch should bring back, but it doesn't like that's going to happen. And so I'm extremely glad that Kill Confirmed is coming back. I'm very interested to see if anything is new with it, or if it's just the same game mode, just set in 2025. Next up, map design. This is something that I've been talking about with some other people. I think the map design in Modern Warfare 3 is some of the worst map design featured in a Call of Duty game. I don't necessarily think it's one studio's fault. I think the problem is they had so many studios. What was it? Infinity Ward, Raven Software, I think Sledgehammer. I think all those worked on some of the maps, if not all the maps. And with map design, I think some of those studios were not used to making Call of Duty games, so they were still trying to figure out the tools. They were still trying to figure out where they could place objects and where they couldn't, and what would be the best way to place them. And Call of Duty maps, you have to be particular. Some of us are particular with how maps are designed, and I think Treyarch does immensely better at map design. And it's not to bash Infinity Ward or Sledgehammer or Raven, because there are a few maps in Modern Warfare 3 that I think are relatively good, but usually it's because they're small maps like Hard Hat or Dome. Those maps, I think, those two are my favorite maps in Modern Warfare 3. But they're relatively small maps, so they're not as hard to design. Treyarch does a good job at designing not necessarily big maps, but medium-sized maps. And I think that's something that Treyarch has always been, in my opinion, better at. War might not have been a game most people enjoyed. Some damn good maps on there. Black Ops, obviously some good maps. Fire Range, Nuketown, Summit. Those maps were great, even though they did have some bad ones like Array. Array is a pretty terrible map, but I won't go into that. Up next, Prestiging. No longer resets your weapon XP or challenges. And I think that changes the way you prestige, because now you don't have to sit there and try to discuss with yourself, should I prestige? If I prestige, like in Modern Warfare 3, I lose my level 31, gold gun, Or in Black Ops, if you have a level 30 MP7, because that is coming back in Black Ops 2, you do not lose the level. You have, a challenge halfway through. You don't have to sit there and say, oh, let me do this challenge and then I'll prestige. You can prestige, and when you unlock that weapon again, that challenge is there for you. And I think that's great, because as a person who actually enjoys prestiging, that adds a little bit of extra incentive, because you're not just sitting here prestiging and then, rebuilding everything from the bottom up. You can start back where you left off. So I think, and again, that's another great thing. Last but not least, the attachments affect the player, not the gun. So no longer are the attachments going to affect, the gun like as perks. So sleight of hand, steady aim are no longer perks; they are attachments. And as a person who loves sleight of hand, I think I'm using it in this video. It's something that I have been accustomed to using, because it's been in every Call of Duty game. If I don't use sleight of hand, it feels like you just reload way, way, way too slow. But now that is an attachment, I will still use it, but now I can mix around and look at different perk options, and see what different perks I can use, because I don't have to worry about using sleight of hand as a perk. With steady aim, most people use steady aim with shotguns, because you don't really need to aim down the sight of a shotgun. So now that's an attachment, some people can mix around with perks, see what different perks are there for shotguns, and if any of them help out. So I think that is relatively good. And all the stuff that I mentioned sounds great in theory, but until we get our hands on the game, when Black Ops 1 first launched, it did not launch relatively well. It had some spawn issues. It had some lag issues where sometimes it was, once you got into a game, the connections were off, and I mean off. And there were times where if you had a party of more than 4 people at the very beginning when the game came out, it was very difficult to get into games. And so none of this means anything unless they, A, get the spawn system correct, which is something Modern Warfare 3 did not, and B, if they get the connections down correctly, which I'm still a fan of using dedicated servers, but we won't go into about how Call of Duty needs that right now on the consoles. None of that matters if they don't get the spawn system and the connections, at a good level. So hopefully, with the game coming out, them, Microsoft, and Sony, and get all the servers set aside and get everything set up correctly, where we can get this off to a good start with the Call of Duty game. And with that, folks, I do apologize for rushing through some of these points. Like I said, I'm still new to this commentary, so I wanted to make sure I got everything I wanted to talk about in this video. So I did try to rush through it, but I'll try in the future to slow it down a little bit, so most of you can hopefully understand what I'm talking about, because there are times when I do talk a little fast. But I'd like to thank you guys for watching and listening, and I hope you guys enjoy the rest of the video, and I hope to see you around soon. Thanks very much.